everybody, it's Ben in Beta, and today I'm going to do an update video, a 6-week update video on the Tacoma, and basically just talk about how things are going with the Tacoma at this point, see if there's anything I've identified that I really don't like, as well as any problems I might have run into and how I might have solved those. We're also going to be doing an MPG loop, and mainly that's because I normally don't travel very far day to day, but today I'm traveling a little bit of ways to go to a store. So I wanted to do a loop, so I reset my mileage, and we'll see what the gas mileage is for this run. I've been typically getting about 17.8 miles per gallon. And then beyond that, we're also going to talk about whether or not I have any kind of buyer's remorse now that the Ford Ranger has been released, as well as the new hybrid Tacomas from Toyota. Do I have any kind of buyer's remorse of not waiting to have purchased one of those? So just as far as the truck itself and the first 6 weeks of ownership and about 600, almost 700 miles, I love this truck. I think it's fantastic. I'm more than satisfied with the power. I'm more than satisfied with the off-road capabilities. We've been able to take it off-road a couple times now. It's eaten up the trails just fine. In fact, we did a trail that was rated easy, and if we had done that in the Tucson, there's no way we would have made it very far down the trail before we had to come home. We made the entire trail in the Tacoma because it just ate the trail up. No problems whatsoever. Her back really didn't hurt that bad from the ride itself. It just was being in the car for 3 hours, 4 hours, and we did the trail and came back. Super impressed. I got to try out 4 high, 4 low. We also got to try the multi-terrain monitor system, which was fantastic. It worked awesome. That camera system's great. There is sort of a secret view that gives you the underneath view of the vehicle that I haven't seen a lot of reviewers talk about. I have a video out about that. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Also, remember that these videos take a lot of time and effort to make, and I do have some affiliate links in the description. And if you find anything in those links that you would find interesting and you're thinking about buying anyway, if you use one of those links, it helps my channel out. It doesn't cost you any more, and in some cases, I even have coupon codes for some of the items. So if you use one of those, I really appreciate it. And if you can't do that, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, or share this out with some people who you think might find it interesting. I'd really appreciate that. So moving on, I love the 14-inch touchscreen. I think that is fantastic. I love the digital display. I love the driver assistance features. Everything works great in this vehicle. I've also really been impressed by the ride quality of this vehicle. It's been better than I thought it was going to be for a truck, honestly, coming from an SUV and cars for a long time. So at this point, I have very few complaints about the vehicle, to be honest with you. I'm still having issues with Android Auto, but one of the things I did there was just added a cable into the vehicle so I can plug it in anytime I want. And because it has a 90-degree angle on it, I'm able to put it into the spot next to the wireless charger. It actually has some advantages. A, it connects every time, and B, I'm actually able to charge the phone while I'm using it. But if I'm using wireless Android Auto, I drain my battery really quickly because I'm often using navigation and pretty much always streaming something. So the battery gets drained pretty quickly that way. And even if it's in the wireless charger, I still end up basically at the same charge as when I started, which isn't bad, but I'd really like to be able to charge up to 100%. When I'm using the cable, I have absolutely no problems charging it all the way up. I really wish the Android Auto port, which has the data connection on it, would have been one of the two that's right next to the phone. I could have had a very short cable, but that's pretty minor. That's one of my gripes. And then the other one that I'm not thrilled with, but it's not terrible. I'm getting about high 17s, low 18s for gas mileage, but almost all my drives are really short drives in the city. So that kind of makes sense. I am at 6,000 feet of elevation, and pretty much anywhere in Colorado Springs, you're heading uphill somewhere. So that eats into it a little bit. When we were going off-road, we got about 14.5 to 15.5 miles per gallon, and that was going up several thousand feet of elevation at like 20 miles an hour. So if that's the mileage I get all the time, I'm a little bit concerned about it from a perspective for overlanding. Because basically, I can assume maybe 10 miles per gallon when I'm overlanding and I'm completely loaded down. So that gives me about 150 miles of range, and it gives me kind of range anxiety, the sort of anxiety I had a little bit with my electric vehicle, which is kind of odd. Now, I'm going to solve that problem by carrying extra gas, but it still would have been really nice if Toyota would have left the gas tank size at 21 MPGs. I think that would have just been better. So I'm doing an MPG loop today, partially because one of the reasons that I think my gas mileage has been a little bit lower the last few trips is I've kept my tire pressure at 30 PSI, which is the recommended PSI for the Tacoma. However, I have the Falcon Wild Peak AT4Ws, which I love so far. They're super quiet. They were great on the trail. I'm really liking those tires. I think because they're a little bit heavier, running them at a little higher PSI is going to be helpful. Recently, I bumped those up to about 33 PSI, and we're going to see how that affects the MPGs on this ride. I'm going into about a 20-mile-an-hour headwind, so I didn't expect it to be amazing, but I'm below 20 for sure on the freeway, going about 71 miles per hour. We'll see what happens when I come back. So MPGs are not fantastic, also not terrible. It could be like 15 per gallon, but again, I haven't been doing very much highway driving, so we'll see how it goes. So the next question might be, do I have buyer's remorse? The Ford Ranger recently was actually finally announced and people drove it and it's available. And that's a nice truck. If it had been available for me to drive back in the fall, I'm not sure if I still would have gone with the Toyota or not, but I still see some advantages with the Toyota that the Ford doesn't have. I think the Toyota's better off-road. I think Toyota's off-road systems are just better. The camera systems are a little bit better. And the MTS system and their crawl control is just better. So I think that's going to be better for us for overlanding. I do think Ford hit it out of the park with a 1,500-pound payload. That's pretty amazing. Great job on that, Ford. But I don't love the center screen, and I don't love that you actually have to go into the screen in order to lock your differentials. But when I configured them, it would have been about maybe $1,500 to $2,000 less for the Ford than the Tacoma. And I really do love the interior and everything about the Tacoma. There are some other features. I don't think you got cooled seats in the Ford. You do in the Toyota, which is nice. Most other features are pretty much the same, to be honest. But again, I think Ford did a great job. I just think that Tacoma's a better vehicle for what we're going to do. I wish the payload were a little bit higher. And then recently, the hybrids were finally kind of officially announced from Toyota. So if we're comparing the TRD Off-Road hybrid to the TRD Off-Road gas model, what do I think there? Do I feel left out? Am I having some FOMO there? I do think the hybrid would have been beneficial in a few different areas. It would definitely have been better gas mileage wise for us because we're doing a lot of off-roading and we do a lot of in-town driving. We would have definitely had better gas mileage. That would have been helpful. And then the 2400 watt inverter, that's also pretty nice for overlanding, but it's not a deal breaker. But all that being said, for an extra $3,700, a lot of that is about the power and torque that you get with that engine. And to be honest with you, I'm not at all complaining about the power and torque of this engine. I'm really happy with it. So that wouldn't have been a real big selling point for me. And realistically, even with the extra gas mileage jump that you would get with the hybrid, over time, eventually you're going to have to replace that battery pack, and you're probably going to eat that cost back up again, or at least a good chunk of it. So I don't think I'm really missing anything, and we saved $3,700 that we can spend on other overlanding gear. And this truck is more than fully capable of anything we want to do. And that brings us then to the top tier trims, the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter. The Pro was never an option for us. I'm not interested in a desert racer. We're really trying to have an everyday driver and something that can do overlanding. So the other option would have been the Trail Hunter. And I think the Trail Hunter is a really cool truck. For those who get it, I think you're going to love it. But for $10,000 more than what we paid, I don't know, it just seems like too much. And the reason there is we wouldn't be doing any overlanding anytime soon because we'd have no budget left for that. That $10,000 would have just eaten away everything else that we had set aside for going out and being able to overland. So that would have been a problem for us. Another thing about Trail Hunter is you can add a lot of the accessories that comes with that after the fact. And one of those things that I'm definitely going to add from Trail Hunter is the axle dump trail exhaust. So that'll be something that'll be coming in the future for sure. And I do have rock sliders coming from Cali Raced, hopefully soon. They should have been here a couple weeks ago, but they haven't arrived yet, but hopefully those will come soon. And basically I'll be as protected as I need to be at that point. I may change out the skid plates and add like actual metal skid plates in the future. And then the light in the grill is another feature that I think would be interesting. And if I can do that in the future, that's another addition I might add. I think that's good for off-road lighting without adding a whole bunch of extra accessories on your vehicle all over the place. And then potentially in the future, I could add the ARB bumper if I wanted to as well. But there are several features on the Trail Hunter that I didn't need or didn't really care about. The high air intake, I think, is a nice feature, but not something I really needed. And then also with the roof rack and the other accessories that sort of automatically come with the Trail Hunter, those are things I was going to replace anyways, and that would be money that I was spending that I didn't need to spend. And I'm really happy with the choice we made in our bed rack, which is the Kuat Ibex rack. I can't wait to get the tent on there next week and some of the other accessories and get out on the trails. So basically that means we get to take our truck and make it our own Overlander how we want it, which is pretty awesome too. And I think the people who buy a Trail Hunter are going to be really happy with it. We would have been really happy had it been $10,000 less than it was. Those are a couple of things on the Trail Hunter that I wish I could have gotten when I ordered my vehicle. I'm gonna have to do it after the fact. And the reason I wish I could have done that when I ordered it was the factory warranty would have applied to all the accessories. I could have had them installed before I picked it up. And now that's not gonna be the case. So I think Toyota missed the boat a little bit there by not having those accessories ready. Even though the Pro and the Trail Hunter weren't available yet, I just think people would have bought them, and why not make some money on that? But it is what it is. We'll see in the end what we end up adding and what we don't. Ranger Raptor is a little bit cheaper, but it's not really an overlanding vehicle. And I think it's a great vehicle, but it has the same problem as a Trail Hunter. If you weren't on the list right away to get that, you're probably not getting one this year at MSRP. And I'm not gonna pay over MSRP for a truck. Just doesn't make sense. And this vehicle is probably gonna do 95 to 98% of what the Trail Hunter is gonna do for us, and get us to 95 to 98% of the places that either one of those vehicles is gonna get us as well. So I'm not upset at all that we went with this vehicle. I'm very happy with it. It's pretty fantastic. So let's take a look at the MPG real quick and see where we're at. So I'm at 17.7 miles per gallon. Again, you can see 34, 35 as the tires have warmed up a little bit. Not great, but we were kind of going uphill, I would say, for the most part. And then also I would say that we were into the wind, like a 20-mile-an-hour wind. If I look in the Toyota system here about our current drive, looking at a 42 mile per hour average, so you can tell I've been doing a lot of in-town, 185 miles. And previous best was 17.7. And the current right now wasn't too great. So that's kind of where we're sitting for MPG. But we'll see if it gets any better on the way out. And I'm gonna turn this off really quick and see what this trip actually was. So let's take a look at that. So 15.4 into the wind, kind of uphill. Not amazing, but let's check it out on the way back. A couple things that so in the end, do I feel regretful about my purchase? Do I feel like I should have waited? A lot of times that is the case with me. I'll often buy something and then think, oh, I should have maybe got the model up from that. That does happen sometimes, but in this case, it really hasn't. So the power and the torque from the engine were one of my concerns with the 3rd gen, as well as the comfort and sort of the options. And Toyota has fixed all of that in this model. Is it expensive? Yes. But again, it's only about $1,500 to $2,000 more than what the Ford Ranger was going to be. And the Ranger probably would have been my next pick for a vehicle. I think they did a good job with that as well. So basically, I'm really happy with my pick. I'm glad we saved the money in the areas that we did, because it allowed us to build out our overlanding setup. Next weekend, we get to pick up our tent. And then the weekend after that, we'll be going on our first overlanding trip, which I'm so excited to do. And that wouldn't have been possible if we would have purchased maybe even the hybrid. We might not have had enough money to have purchased the tent this year. So all those little purchases and little ideas add up over time. And it really is about, do you need something or not? So in these cases, I just don't think we needed those. We'll have to find the right battery setup for us for overlanding, but I don't think that's going to be too hard either. And I'm okay with having a battery I can use for other things besides just having sit in my vehicle. And the other thing about the hybrid is you have no under-seat storage in the back. When you lose that, that's just another place where you can't put things. And I actually kind of like that back there. It's where all my tools are going to go, and maybe some other things as well. So that's actually going to be a benefit by having kept the gas model over the hybrid. Look at that. Pulled right in front of those people, no problem. But I'm really curious about what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think the hybrid is just way better? Do you think I should have waited for the Trail Hunter? Are you waiting for a Trail Hunter or the hybrid? And if so, what are you excited about? Why are you excited about those models? And why do you think they're gonna be better for you? I'm just curious about those things because I think it's interesting to see what other people think. So now we're just gonna be heading back here downhill more and with the wind, and we'll see if that improves the gas mileage on this part of the trek. And I'll check back in when we get back home. All right, so as I mentioned, I really like these cameras. Let's see how we did on the MPG loop coming back home. So here you can see we improved to 17.9, which is nice. And you can see we had a lot of above 20s in that drive, which is pretty great too. So when we shut it off, let's see what the final MPG was on the highway. So 25.6 coming back. That's a pretty big swing. Not bad at all. If you can get that kind of number on the highway, that's pretty fantastic. With the headwind and uphill, it was definitely worse, but 25.6 on the highway, that's pretty fantastic. So that's what the MPG loop looks like. All right, so you got the MPG loop, you got my thoughts on the vehicle for the first 6 weeks of ownership, what I like, what I don't like, how I've solved a few problems, and then if I have any reservations about having purchased this and not having waited for some of the other models to come out. So I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, live your life in beta, and we'll see you next time.